Hello to everybody watching and listening, and once again, welcome back to some Mechabellum. Get ready for a weird game. Yeah, because this is one of the games where I was at a complete loss of what to do and basically just playing on raw instinct. I am playing against this guy, and since I am German, I can actually speak this name how it's probably supposed to sound in your head. Konrad Kraft von Dellmensingen. I hope that wasn't too loud, but I have a limiter in, so it shouldn't be too loud for you guys. I hope at least. Anyway, I'm deploying with 5 units of chaff and some sledgehammers in the first round, and my opponent is starting with these stormcrawlers and some fangs. And he's putting them in probably the worst possible position, more or less. I guess it could be worse if he puts them here, significantly worse. But it's definitely not my preferred position. He is. I am playing with Rhino Specialist, but at least I get crawlers and sledges. My opponent is playing as Supply Specialist, and he has fangs and stormcrawlers. Oops, and the round is starting. Come on. Really wish this would kinda, clamp in on 1.0. One of the tanks on both sides gets instantly taken out by the stormcrawlers, but I guess it could have been worse. That said, with 5 slow units. Yeah, I started with fangs and crawlers, not with... no, with fangs and sledges, not with crawlers and sledges. I just get kind of stomped here in round number 1. Not even funny. I do get a lot of my opponent's units down, but I guess I take about 250 damage or something like that. By the way, this was an entire misclick. I was still annoyed clicking on my mouse, and yeah, I apparently hit the skip button. I probably would have picked electromagnetic impact if I had the choice, or high range sledges, and that might have made a significant difference on the next few rounds. I also had no idea what actually came out of what was possible to come out of my opponent. I did not expect him to go for mass-produced Wraith in standard versus standard, though. Because unless he is starting to treat all of this as delayed chaff, this right now is standard versus standard. I do throw some additional crawlers down on the field, one in the middle, so it distracts these stormcrawlers. My opponent is, however, happily going for 2 Wraiths in standard, and since he puts them at the rear of his army, this is definitely still a standard play. Imagine my surprise when I kind of wake up to double Wraith in standard versus standard when I am still trying to get the chaff situation under control against stormcrawlers. Well. Yeah. This is certainly a situation that I haven't been in for a long time, fighting Wraiths in standard play. Now, my crawlers do definitely have the edge in combat on the outside here. And these fangs are staying out of range of the Wraiths for the moment. But of course, the Wraiths are much more powerful and have a lot more health than these fangs can realistically expect to just destroy. That said, I'm getting a tower debuff. And under the tower debuff, these fangs actually do end up taking one of the Wraiths down. It's close, but it did happen. Now, the rest of the fight is not going to be as close in any way, shape, or form. I do still get 2 of the Stormcrawlers, which is 100 damage negated, but that's all I'm getting. Right now, I'm scratching my head what to do here. Laser sight comes out, heavy armor, and intensive training. Definitely all 3 of those worth picking up. I was going to think, or I did think about going into some wasps here, and that definitely came in handy, because against mass-produced Wraith, they should definitely be wrecking this. Now, I wasn't sure if maybe my opponent would just sell out of them and use them as a sort of stepping stone and try to annoy me with it. But other than the fangs, there's not really much in the way that can actively hurt wasps. I guess I should be considering myself fortunate that the Wraith here with the range is on the opposite side of the wasps with range, because at least this way they can have a decent advantage against this Wraith. Because without upgrades, Wraiths absolutely shred wasps. With upgrades, though, the wasps absolutely shred the Wraiths. And there's no way that the Wraiths can turn this around other than winning the chaff war so heavily that the wasps are still stuck on chaff while the Wraith approaches. That is the only way a Wraith can win against the Wasps once attacks come out on both of the units here. Even in this position, I don't want to overcommit because my opponent can just very easily over 2 rounds sell these Wraiths and laugh because I put techs into Wasps. He is putting more delayed chaff out, and this formation, it's almost inverted based on what you would expect. Chaff is in the rear and the artillery is in the front. He does add on a 3rd Wraith here. So now I'm fairly confident he will stick to those. I do add on 1 more marksman simply so that I can put some extra damage into the Wraiths. But basically my opponent has chaff clear and artillery. And he has an opponent in me that is kinda lost in this game for the moment. The Wasps here got shredded, but the Wraith here got shredded. And the Wasps are actually pretty decent against these Fangs as well when they have superior range. An additional Wraith goes down, but chaff has been annihilated. And this Wraith has the range to take the Wasps out without any issue whatsoever. I do get a tower, but it does not really matter at all. There's too much on the board for this to actively do anything. The Wasp is targeted by the Wraith and gets taken out, and the Crawlers just evaporate against these Wraiths. Next round. Mustangs come out, Rhinos come out, Typhoons come out. I'm not sure how good Typhoons are into the Wraiths, but I already put my mind to it and decided to try going with Wasps against these Wraiths. Because everything else on the board, once the Wasps have techs, will die to the Wasps. Like, pure Wasp with techs is a counter to this board. As stupid as it sounds. I do end up selling one of the Rhinos. Did I sell one of the... Oh yeah, I sold one of the Rhinos because I had 3 level 2 Rhinos this round. After all, I am Rhino specialist here. But I don't think I could have realistically made a big, huge push. I guess I could have put Rhinos in the flanks and distracted these Wraiths forever. But I kind of want to eat them. Anyway. I go for range on these Wasps. And get an upgrade. And I dropped some additional level 2 marksmen just to help with making a bit more balanced of a board. In my mind, I can still turn this around without having to go for super, ultra, mega hard counters and commits. My opponent, unfortunately, did also go for range on the Wraiths. I guess I could and should have seen that coming. But I now have a unit here that my opponent doesn't really have much in the way of being able to kill. The only thing that is pretty good against them is these Sabertooths, because they have decent single target DPS. That is not true for these mass-produced Wraiths. Now this Rhino is a sad fellow, because momentarily it will get destroyed by this tank. A high-level Sabertooth is scary. These Wasps are eating. They are starting to gain a level, which is very important. The Wraiths here get taken out by the Marksmen, maybe. Yeah, they do get taken out. But there's not really much stopping this Wraith here. All of the Wasps have died, and the Marksman was still locked onto chaff. If the Wasps had also taken out this Wraith, I would have won the round. Now health is getting kinda tight. And combat powers come out. And portable shield. I don't really think that acid is worth for me, because what is there to really acid other than this one Sabertooth? Orbital Javelin. This thing has over 70,000 health, so it doesn't really matter. Shield is probably going to immediately be broken, so the only thing I really find worth picking up is this portable shield here, just to make the Wasps a little more durable. Maybe it would have been better on the sledges, all things considered, or on one of the Rhinos. I think if I were to replay that, I would put that on the Rhino. I do keep one Rhino for this round. I can't sell both of them, actually. I do end up taking the area specialization, but my opponent isn't stupid. He sniffs out what I'm trying to do, now that I've put a tech into the Wasps, and he goes for fortresses. He does not have anti-air yet, and he can't... Well, I guess he can rapid resupply and still buy it. It's surprisingly cheap for how powerful it is. I think it needs to be more expensive, I think. Because it can be absolutely devastating. I do end up getting my upgrades. I'm not buying out because, well, I have an entire health bar here to destroy. And I do try and make a bit of mobile beacon shenanigans up in the front to make my crawlers here last a bit longer. And I guess I never noticed this, but when they turn around, they kind of bump onto each other and spin a bit. Not that it matters against wraiths. Now, here's a bit of the problem. These wraiths, or at least the wraith with extra range, has a higher range than the fortress. Which means that it will not be locked onto ahead of time. It will stay behind the fortress. And that means that these wasps are not locking onto the wraith, which they should be locking onto. Instead, they lock onto the fortress, because despite the fact that they in theory have area specialization, it's not an auto-target anything that is flying. It simply means that if no, as far as I know at least, if no ground unit is in range, they will go for an air unit that is further away because it is in range. But they don't prefer these targets per definition. I end up going down to 330 health. Arc lights, but against this many fangs, if he hits shield, I'm done for. Hacker, what is there to actually hack? I guess the fortress and the tanks, but that's it. Vulcan, against this much chaff, probably the best option of all of them. Now, my opponent has this button here, and that's about the scariest thing that he can do, I think. I guess there's a lot of scary options that my opponent has. Oh yeah, I got some Mustangs for chaff here, but now I'm picking the Vulcans out of pure desperation. And against a crazy army like my opponent is building, I feel like I need to do something crazy as well to turn it around, because otherwise I'm done for. My opponent gets all of the buffs and drops some additional fortresses, and has enough money to also drop some anti-air barrage. He sold this tank, so he's rich. I drop some wraiths on my own, of my own, because they can actually take the anti-air missiles and heal up. I got defeated by this strategy before, which is why I'm trying to use it now. But now I'm kind of stuck with nothing that really hits hard enough against fortresses, but I have a button that I hadn't pushed in a long while, and it's this button here, Knight, which will do 6% damage of the max HP of the unit that is being hit. So that is actually decent DPS against giants, though I certainly wouldn't call it insane unless it's a very high level giant. It can also be countered by Photon. The air distraction is working very well. You can see that these waves have taken little damage and they're already regenerating, and they're helping with the chaff play on the outside. So that definitely was a good move. However, the enemy's DPS is too great here. The wasps are level 3, I think, these wasps, and they are taking out these units fairly quickly, but there's nothing left to tank against the anti-air barrages. But they do take out the fortresses before that happens. That said, there are still these 2 fortresses, and carry mass-produced wraiths, as stupid as that sounds, alive. And with the added range of this wraith, it ends up being a loss. So I lose without ever winning a round. But that was... Normally I don't really want to upload storms like that, because I think it's kind of boring if there's no turnaround, at least in some way, shape or form. I try to keep games interesting though, so how should I put this? I guess a bit of a jab in the side of other YouTubers. I want to see when the last time happened that another YouTuber uploaded a game where they lost without ever winning a round by round 6 in that sort of a fashion. I want to see who does that as well. And in that case, I want to congratulate that person, because I think they are doing very good content and keeping it interesting, because, you know, sometimes there is turnarounds, sometimes there's just not. Anyway, I wanted to upload this mostly because my opponent's army was absolutely crazy, but I got completely blasted by it. So maybe going for a lot of fangs and stormcrawlers and fortresses and mass-produced wraiths and tanks and is actually something that you can think about, at least against somebody who is not yet good at the game like I am. I don't consider myself good, at least measuring myself by the standards that high-level players have. But yeah, thanks for watching and listening to this crazy game, and until next time.